You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
You're listening to the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres Edition, your source for all news, press conference reactions, analysis, and objective discussions regarding the NHL's Buffalo Sabres from right here in the Niagara region. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad.
Gotta remember to unmute the mic. Still learning this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres Edition right here in the Armchair GM Sports Network, your June 3rd, 2021 edition, your source North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. You can find us on social media for updates and giveaways by following the podcast on Twitter at Armchair GM Pod, as well as this show's podcast. Make sure you're following it at AGM Sabres Pod. We're posting all the time regarding Sabres updates and polls for the show if you want to get in on those. So please go and follow us at AGM Sabres Pod. As well, you can like us on Facebook and Instagram, and we are on many platforms for you, including Spreaker.com, the free Spreaker app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Deezer, and of course now in video form on YouTube. So make sure you're smashing that like button, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon for all updates and sharing on YouTube there. As well, we are on, lastly, our beautiful user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding the network, including articles, podcast episodes, sponsors, and contributors. Everything's on there for you guys. Please go and check that out, and make sure you're giving us a like and a subscribe on whatever platform you listen to us right now. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Sabres portion of the network. My name is Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on Twitter right underneath there at Caputs13_AGM with a Canadian Z as always. And I'm pleased to be joined by my co-host for the Sabres portion of the network. He is Austin Broad. You can follow him on Twitter at Austin_Broad. Austin, let the people know what you've got going on and where they can find all the great work that you're doing.
Same as always, guys. I'm just doing some scouting for FC hockey. Doing some prospect work for Dauber prospects involving the Carolina Hurricanes, and doing my usual stuff at thechargingbuffalo.net, where we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We got a new podcast launching this weekend. We got the draft guide coming out. Just a lot of stuff going on. So make sure you're following the Charging Buffalo, FC hockey, and Dauber prospects.
Perfect. So on today's show, obviously by the thumbnail, you saw that the Buffalo Sabres last night won the 2021 NHL Draft Lottery. The second time they've won with the best odds in 5 tries. So I guess that's decent enough odds, Austin. The fact that, they got Dahlin at 1, and now they're going to have a chance at possibly 4 players in the thumbnail there. But there's a lot of players this year. And again, it's not going to be the top-heavy franchise-level players. But I don't know if you've noticed or not, but every team in the league doesn't just have a team of superstars, so you're going to need to have second line centers, second line wingers, number 2 to 3 defensemen. So regardless that there's not a quote unquote franchise level player in this draft, the Sabres are going to have their pick on whatever player they like the most.
Yeah, it's for a lot of people, it depends on the way you look at it, but it's almost best case scenario. The Sabres get first overall. They get to pick the player they view as the best player in the draft. I mean, that's what you want at the end of the day. It might not be the player that most fans want, because obviously the consensus right now is Owen Power is that guy. I know a lot of Sabres fans are leaning more towards the forwards, Matty Beniers or William Eklund, more specifically Matty Beniers. But at the end of the day, you get to pick. You get to pick your best player, you can't just say, oh, he was number 1 on our board. No, literally now you have the pick of the litter. You don't have to wait for someone to decide for you. So it's a big deal for Kevin Adams. I mean, it's his second year as the GM. He's going to have to, his first time picking first overall. He said it himself, the first overall pick can change the course of your franchise. You're getting a good player no matter what. Like you said, it's not that superstar franchise caliber player you're getting this year, but you are going to get a player that should be on this team for a long time and make an impact for a long time.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the draft lottery stuff in the second part of today's show and discuss kind of those top 4 prospects that we had talked about and put on the poll this week at AGM Sabres Pod. So we'll get into that in segment 2. But to start off the show today, Austin, let's quickly look at the Sabres at the World Championships. In our last week's show, or last recording, we had discussed the 5 players that were going to be representing Buffalo for their country at the World Championships. So let's go ahead and start off here. And for you people following along on the video portion of the network, I'm going to pull up the stats for you on the screen. And we've got, first off, Colin Miller from Team Canada. 4 games played, 1 assist, Austin. Again, not really much to say about Colin Miller. I don't know if he's going to be a long-term option on this team, but as of now, he is a Buffalo Sabre, and he's representing Team Canada. So kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone there for both of us as Hockey Canada supporters as well as Sabre supporters. So what have you thought of the little bit of action that you've seen from Colin Miller on a very disappointing Team Canada team so far in the World Championships?
Yeah, well, for Canada, you kind of expected it. I mean, they weren't really going superstar heavy players. They were going for the most part the younger, more obscure players there. I thought Miller was fine, before he suffered that injury, and he probably won't play for the rest of the tournament, but he was fine. I mean, Canada has really only been interesting for the fact that potential first overall pick Owen Power is on the team. It's really the only reason I've paid attention to Canada. Other than that, I've spent most of my time paying attention to Germany and the United States because I haven't even watched Sweden, to be honest, so I couldn't even tell you. I know Victor Olofsson's putting up points. We'll get into that later, but I've really only watched USA, Germany, and the odd Canada game because this year the world hasn't really been that interesting to me. Miller is a guy that, like you said, he's not really a long-term option, so when he went, I couldn't even get myself to be excited to watch him because I don't really think he's going to be here. So for that, I mean, hopefully he's not hurt too bad because there is a potential that he will be a Sabre to start the season, and they are going to need bodies back on the back end. So hopefully the injury is not too bad, but he was okay. He was Colin Miller, right? Like he just hammers shots from the point and hopes they go through, and most of the time they don't.
Yeah, so he's the best at shooting it into the defenseman's skate, but we won't pick on Colin Miller too much. But let's move on here to Tobias Reader and the Team Germany representatives, 2 of them for the Sabres. First, Toby Reader, goal and 2 assists in 7 games, so not bad, +2 rating. No shorthanded points, though, which usually is his expertise. But what do you thought of Toby Reader? Who knows if he's going to even be a Sabre next year?
Yeah, so Toby Reader, Germany's been a nice story in this tournament. They started out really strong, started out as one of the top teams in the tournament. Reader came out firing. I know he scored in their first game. Toby Reader, if he is here next year in that 4th line role, I mean, again, you're aside from the shorthanded points, you're seeing a lot of what you saw from him in Buffalo and from his NHL career. He's a fast guy who can put up points, but really is just more effective at being that role player who will, use his speed to get the pucks out and generate some offense. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. Like, Germany's been really fun. Tobias Reader's obviously got 4 points in 8 games as of right now. He's been a leader for that team, and that's kind of what we were hoping we were going to get from him in Buffalo. And obviously, no fault of his own, it didn't work out because nothing in Buffalo worked out this year.
Well said. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about JJ Paterka because I completely forgot about Victor Olofsson, so I've got to pull his stats up on the page. So while you go ahead and talk about JJ Paterka, I'm going to go ahead and pull up Victor Olofsson's stats for the people here. So go ahead. What have you thought of one of the bright spots in the Sabres prospect line, JJ Paterka, who you've been really high on in the past as well?
Yeah, so JJ Paterka is arguably top 2 in terms of players in the Sabres prospect system, depending on your feelings about Jack Quinn. But Paterka, he missed the first few games. I know he was being scratched, or they didn't really report what was going on, but I know he wasn't dressed. He's only played in 3 games, but his first game, he was awesome. He played 14 minutes, was really effective in transition, was winning a lot of loose puck battles, showing that grit and determination that you want to see from a player with Paterka's playing style. And then in his second game, he scored an absolutely beautiful goal, just hammered a wrist shot past the goaltender that he had no shot of stopping, and that's what you want to see from JJ Paterka. I mean, it took him a while to get in there, but in the 3 games that he's played, he's been really good, and I think their quarterfinal game is tomorrow. I don't know the schedule exactly, but I know they have a big game coming up. Actually, I think they play, I don't know, today or tomorrow. But he's definitely a player that Sabres fans need to be watching because as of right now, him and Jack Quinn are the two best forward prospects we have, and they're just exciting players to watch. And having Paterka not dominate, but play well on the world stage, like he did at the World Juniors, and now he's doing it against men. There's a lot to be encouraged about with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So JJ Paterka, definitely bright spot in the Sabres organization, and again, only 1 goal in 3 games, but definitely showing some promise over there for Germany. Let's move on here to Tage Thompson for Team USA, Austin, and 1 goal, 1 assist in 5 games. To me, he was the guy that I was looking at as far as the guy to watch coming off of a strong end to the season under head coach Don Granato here in Buffalo. So what did you think of Tage Thompson's tournament?
Yeah, so he looked really well at the start of the tournament. He was, generating offense. He was using his skating and his stick handling. I think he suffered like a minor injury and missed a game or 2. I know he's been back in the lineup now. Right now on Elite Prospects, they have him with a goal and an assist in 6 games, so like that's impressive there. Tage isn't going to be that guy that puts up a point per game. So like if you're expecting all world levels of production from him at the Worlds, I mean your bar is a little bit too high. But watching him skate with confidence with the puck on his stick, creating offense and using his offensive creativity to generate some offense is what you want to see from him. And the couple times that I've watched Team USA, I've seen that from Tage, so that's really encouraging. Granato unlocked something in him when Kruger was gone, and they freed up the offense. So it's nice to see him carry that momentum into this tournament, and hopefully he still can carry that even further into next year and continue to be at least a top 9 forward for the Sabres.
Yeah, I mean, we had even before the season started talked about Tage Thompson being in a top 6 winger role for this team, and with Ralph Kruger that just that went up in flames. But it definitely looked like in the second half of the year that he took his game to another level and his development to another level to hopefully be a decent piece that the Sabres can look back on from the Ryan O'Reilly trade, and how awful it was that there was a bright spot there in Tage Thompson. So let's hope for better things from Tage Thompson as he continues from the end of the season and from this World Championships for Team USA. Next, definitely not least, Arttu Russolainen has had a great tournament, Austin. In 7 games for Finland, he has 4 goals, 1 assist, 21 shots on goal. He definitely looks like he's in his zone right now, and definitely exciting that hopefully he can take that what he's doing here at the Worlds for Sweden into next season with Buffalo as he finished off the season on the Sabres roster.
Yeah, so that the last time I watched him play in the Worlds was that game against Canada where he scored both their goals and then had the shootout winner. He was awesome. I mean, when you look at the way he's played this year, he's played, so including Rochester, Buffalo, and Eels in the Liga play, he has played for 4 teams now at the Worlds. He has scored a total of 30 goals for 4 different teams this year. And, he had 13 points in 13 games with the Americans. He had 6 points in 17 games with the Sabres, but he had 5 goals in 17 games. Like, all this kid does is score goals. I mean, we're going to get into Victor Olofsson next. They are extremely similar players, except for the fact that Arttu Russolainen scores his goals at 5-on-5. I was for keeping him in Rochester a little bit longer at the start of the year because I thought, I wanted to keep seeing more and more from him. He showed more and more. All the Sabres fans who said he should have been here from the get-go, I mean, they're probably right. So I'm going to take the L on that one. He probably should have been up with Buffalo for the entire season because, let's face it, they could have used a guy who scores goals, and this dude has shown it throughout his entire professional hockey career that's all he does, and I see no reason why he's going to stop scoring goals all of a sudden.
Yeah, definitely another guy, a bright spot in the Sabres organization that maybe we didn't expect so quickly to kind of be that goal scorer so quickly in an NHL level, and here at a tournament playing against men that are playing in the NHL. So definitely bright spot for Arttu Russolainen and the Sabres organization with another good Finnish prospect there. And obviously I had forgotten him, so I had to put him in real quick here. There's Victor Olofsson. Can't believe I forgot about him. But for Sweden, he's got 4 points in 7 games, including 3 goals. what have you thought of Victor Olofsson's game with Sweden? I know you said you haven't really watched much of Sweden, but from the highlights that we've seen, floating around Sabres Twitter and things like that, always keeping us up to date. What have you thought of Victor Olofsson? And, he has 2 power play goals, so he scored 1 goal 5-on-5 at even strength. So, but Victor Olofsson, obviously scoring goals on the power play is his specialty, and he's got 2 out of 3.
Yeah, so like you said, Victor Olofsson has been Victor Olofsson, at this tournament. He's scoring goals. He's using, that man advantage. That's what he's good at. He's obviously, with the open ice at the World Championships, because it's obviously the bigger ice surface, he's going to be able to get his shot off even more so than he does in the NHL level. I like that with Victor, you're seeing him continue to do what he's going to do well. At the age that he's at, depending on how they use him going forward, I don't know if he's ever going to be that great 5-on-5 goal scorer, but at the same time, he was a 7th round pick. I don't need him to be that great 5-on-5 goal scorer. I just need him to keep doing what he's been doing, and watching him do it at the NHL level and now again at the Worlds. It's just, at least he's consistent. That's what you want to see from this kid going forward. And I see no reason to believe that he's not going to be successful with Sweden. I mean, they were off to a bad start. I mean, Sweden, Canada, and the U.S., there was all a chance that they weren't even going to make the quarterfinals when this tournament started. So seeing them all get back to this, the level that they're at, it's a good sign. Yeah,
absolutely, definitely. And Victor Olofsson becoming the power play specialist. And, to a lesser extent, and again, he's not the same countryman either, but he reminds me of Mikko Rantanen in the sense that he has that dangerous shot from the right side as a left-handed shot on the power play. You can either, take a one-timer, or he can use that wrist shot that's very lethal as well. So, again, to a lesser extent, he reminds me of like a mini version of Mikko Rantanen, obviously not as fast, not, 6'4", being able to skate like he's 5'5", and being able to score 5-on-5, which Rantanen does very well also. But to me, he just reminds me of the same type of player. He's always able to get open on the power play, kind of find those areas, and be able to get himself in high dangerous scoring opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, with Olofsson, it's weird. I mean, on the power play, he's so effective. He's so good off the puck. He can get open for that shot. If he can find a way to get open like that on 5-on-5, like as a winger, I don't need him to be a play driving player. I just need him to get open and fire the puck. So depending on what this roster looks like going forward, if they can find a center who's just going to carry the puck himself and all Olofsson has to do is just get open, that's probably the best way to deploy him. I think Olofsson's future as a top-line power play guy and a third-line winger makes the most sense. But, I mean, we'll see. If he finds a way to somehow – again, he's 25, so I don't know how much more time he's got to continue to develop that off-the-puck game. But if he can find a way to just work on his off-the-puck game at 5-on-5, there's – really, like, he does have that potential to still be a top 6 player. But right now, I'm thinking third line for him, power play specialist. But that's okay because he was a 7th round pick.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, for a 7th round pick, he's definitely been one of the few late round draft picks that have actually worked out for the Sabres in the last decade, which hasn't been a whole lot that we've talked about in the past. But definitely good showing for some of the Sabres content at the World Championship. So we'll see how the tournament wraps up, and if we're talking about one of the players there finishing with the trophy there. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break on the show today, and then in our final segment, second segment today, we're going to get into all the draft lottery stuff, the results, and talk about those top 4 prospects in the poll that we put up on AGM Sabres Pod. So stay right here. I'll be right back on the Sabres edition of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown, and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award, 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374-4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carmine'spizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final segment of today's Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here in the Armchair GM Sports Network. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad back with you here for the final segment on today's show. A little bit of a shorter episode, but we've got to spread out the content for you guys for the next little bit here until we get to the NHL draft. So with that said, let's get into the reaction to, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Sabres winning the NHL draft lottery last night with the best odds. It was nice to see a rare positive moment for Sabres fans, at least for one night, to just kind of enjoy something positive that the team has done. And we saw Kevin Adams' reaction to that. And for once, Austin, it just seemed like there wasn't the black cloud hanging over Buffalo that seems to be going around the NHL and fans around the world. So just a good moment for Buffalo for what was a very tough year and almost a record-breaking losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you ask, because, I mean, a lot of Sabres Twitter is not exactly thrilled right now because of reasons that we'll get into in a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, when you have the best odds, you might as well want the first overall pick. I mean, depending on your views on this prospect class, the number one overall pick, you're still getting a good player. But if you have a preference for the player who isn't the consensus number one overall pick in Owen Power, you're not going to be happy, because I think there's a better chance than not. Probably about 90-10 that they're picking Owen Power. Like, it's a safe almost slam dunk that it will be Power. So a lot of fans aren't exactly thrilled about that right now. But when you really get into it, why wouldn't you want to pick first overall? I mean, it's the second time in 4 years, 2018. So it's not somewhere we want to be. It's somewhere we're used to being, but hopefully Kevin Adams can, jumpstart something here with this pick.
And again, next year, you look ahead to Shane Wright and Connor Bedard. Obviously, those guys are, projected with all the hype to be those franchise elite level guys. But again, you can't just have a whole team of franchise level guys. You have to be able to fill out the rest of your lineup here with second line players, second pair defensemen. So even if Owen Power or whoever it is the selection, I do think that they're going to make an impact on the Sabres, and it's going to be a positive thing, even though that they won't have an opportunity at a guy like Wright or Bedard in next year's draft. With the best odds, the Sabres retained it. The only difference was the Anaheim Ducks and Seattle Kraken had swapped 2 and 3 slots. So the Seattle Kraken, for their first ever draft, will be picking second overall, so that'll be interesting for them. And the Sabres will kind of make that pick for them at that point if they choose to not go with Owen Power, I think, in that regard. But let's get into that, Austin, a little bit, and we can discuss in the offseason about, do they trade it? What kind of return could they get for this pick? Things like that. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff today. What we're here to talk about basically are the 4 prospects that we had put up on our poll today. Yesterday, and again, let me pull that up for you guys, the poll results. And again, make sure you're following us at AGM Sabres Pod. We do interactive polls for our shows, and we want your input on those each and every week, because we want to hear what you guys are thinking out there. So with that said, the poll was, if the Buffalo Sabres win the NHL draft lottery, which of these players would you like to see them draft at number 1 overall? Owen Power, Matt Beniers, William Eklund, Brent Clark. Those were the 4 choices. The winner with 51% was Matt Beniers, which was interesting. Owen Power came in second with 28.6, and then William Eklund and Brent Clark were tied for third/fourth with 10.2. So, Austin, what are your thoughts on and reactions to the Twitter poll there that Beniers was a lot higher than Owen Power?
Basically what I expected from Sabres Twitter. I mean, when you look at Buffalo, they're lacking in forward prospects. Beniers could arguably slot into your third line center next year and make a decent impact there. He's the favorite for Sabres Twitter, so I'm not surprised at all. Honestly, I'm not. Beniers is my number 1 ranked prospect personally. That's who I would personally take with the number 1 overall pick. But I also understand how NHL GMs work, how this season has worked, how the scouting has been very weird and difficult for a lot of them. The 6'5" defenseman with skating ability is going to always be viewed as the safe pick, the safest bet to be an impact NHLer. Owen Power has been the number 1 guy on Bob McKenzie's ranking all year. He's ranked no lower. I mean, Dauber Prospects has him ranked 9th, but he's ranked no lower than 6th by a lot of the scouting services out there. He's the consolidated number 1 overall choice. Everyone talks about him like he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. So that's who they're going to take, more likely than not. I'm okay with it, but I just know Sabres Twitter wants that forward prospect. They want that center, especially with the impending Eichel trade. So I get it. I'm with you. But at the end of the day, there's no wrong choice. You don't draft for need in the NHL. I do think Beniers makes that value and need balance. But if the Sabres view Power as their number 1 overall pick, that's who they should take. If that's who they view as a number 1 overall pick, that's who they should take, no question.
Take the best guy available, because it's not like they have a stacked roster where, a forward can't fit into the lineup or a D-man can't fit into the lineup. This team finished last. So there's going to be opportunity for whether it be a forward, a D, or, heaven forbid, a goalie. I know there's no goalie that's ranked high, but regardless, any position could be filled on this roster. And it's not like they have 4 elite forwards that, why would they take a forward? They're never going to be able to fit in this lineup, that, especially like you mentioned with the impending Eichel trade. There could be an opening there for a forward, but there's also opening for defensemen as well if Rasmus Ristolainen gets dealt, which we talked about on last week's show. So I think that there definitely could be an option for either a forward or a defenseman. I don't think that they're going to, rule one of those options out, because I think that this organization could use any help that they could get, if it's a top-end defenseman or a top-end forward. I think they go with whoever they feel is the best player available in the draft, not going based off of a need. So for me, I think I'm with you there with Owen Power or Beniers, whoever they view as the top guy. That's the guy they're going to take.
Yeah, I mean, like, it all comes down to, again, I hate this discussion because Matt Beniers is the guy that I would take number one if I had to pick. But when you look at Power's game, it's something that I'm going to be digging into a lot more now. There's a lot to like about him. Now, the argument, the fun argument lately is forwards impact the game more than defensemen. While I don't disagree, that doesn't necessarily mean that Matt Beniers is going to be a better player than Owen Power. We just don't know. Power is also a left-hand shot defenseman, so drafting him to play behind Dahlin at number one overall, again, this is all nuance to the argument. But building your defense core around Dahlin and Power as your top two pairs I can get excited about that. I've already talked myself into being excited about that because I'm prepared for them to take Power. I think that's who they're going to take. I've watched them at the World Championships, and he's looked very good in limited action for Canada against men. Obviously, being over here, it's harder to watch NCAA hockey in Canada. Like, you pretty much can't find it anywhere unless you stream it. I never really got to see him at Michigan. But when you have a 6'5" defenseman who can skate like Power does, he has the offensive instincts like he does. We know that that's how NHL scouts and NHL GMs, that's the type of player they love. To them, that's the safe pick. They're going to make an impact at the NHL. Is he going to be a superstar? No. But to be fair, as much as I love Matt Beniers, I don't think he's going to be a superstar either. So really, like I said, we've already talked about it. It just comes down to who people view as the best NHL prospect. And right now, more people than not view it as Owen Power. So we just got to be prepared for that's who they're going to take.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at Owen Power stats first, Austin. We're going to go through four guys real quick. Let's look at his stats here. Obviously, like you mentioned, left shot defenseman, 2002, 18 years old. He's listed as 6'5", 211 pounds, according to his Hockey DB page. Played with the Chicago Steel last year in the USHL, and then this year playing at the University of Michigan in NCAA action, and has done a pretty solid job. And then, like you mentioned, in limited action with Canada, 3 points in 7 games. So definitely some pretty impressive stats for such a young defenseman. And we know when Rasmus Dahlin was coming over as the number one overall pick, that it's very difficult to come into the league and playing in leagues that may be above where your age group is at currently. That's not the easiest thing to do, especially for a young defenseman to be able to learn the next step in that game, whether it be college, whether it be men's hockey overseas, or taking that next step to the NHL level. That's not an easy thing to do, and I think Owen Power, like Rasmus Dahlin, has the skill set to be able to transition that, maybe as a rookie or a second-year player into the league as a very young defenseman.
Yeah, it's weird. People are obviously, like I said, I've even talked about it. People are going to focus on the 6'5", 214 pounds, the body frame. That's obviously important for a defenseman. But the thing with Power is he doesn't play like a 6'5" defenseman. His game, when you really look at it, it relies on his skating ability, which is a bit of a debate topic. People are really high on it. Some people think it's not that good. I'm in the camp where it's good. It is going to get better and probably should get a little bit better. But a 6'5" guy who jumps into transition and makes an impact on offense isn't really something that the NHL, like the Sabres, definitely don't have that. I mean, we thought Rasmus Russolainen was going to be that guy, and he's a tire fire.
Or Tyler Myers.
Well, Tyler Myers was great in his rookie year, and my buddy from TCB, Joe, he said the same thing. He's like, I think Owen Power can be Tyler Myers. I was like, if Owen Power can be Tyler Myers from his rookie year and maintain that level of consistency, you take that all day. Tyler Myers won the Calder as the best rookie in the NHL. If you're getting good Tyler Myers, again, is that necessarily what you want with the number one overall pick? Not really, but that's where we're at this year. You're not getting a true blue chip prospect this year at the first overall pick. There's legitimately probably 5 guys who could arguably be the top overall pick. But when you look at Owen Power, the body frame is there. The offensive game is there. My biggest thing is Dan Girardi deserves a lot of credit for the way he unlocked the defense when he took over as the assistant coach. If they can keep him, I would be ecstatic that he's the guy who's going to help develop and unlock Owen Power's game, because when you look at Owen Power, there's already a lot of good things there, but there's so much more that needs to be unlocked. And I really trust Girardi to be that guy to unlock it based off of what he did with Dahlin, Jokiharju in that second half of the year.
Yeah, he's definitely shown as a longtime NHL defenseman himself that he has the ability to kind of take those guys who were regressing this year early on with Ralph Kruger to kind of revitalize their seasons and kind of get them back on the right track, like you mentioned with Dahlin and guys like Jokiharju. So I think that's a positive thing if they do go on with the Owen Power option. Let's move on here to the second option here, and that is the other guy that we had just spoke about, Matt Beniers. Obviously, he is playing for the University of Michigan in the Big Ten. 24 games played, 24 points. And he played for the U.S. national under-18 team and under-17 team in the USHL. And also, like we had mentioned, he's playing at the World Championships right now as well, along with Owen Power. He's playing for Team USA, 2 points in 5 games. Again, 6'1", 168 pounds, shoots left, 18 years old. What are we thinking of Matt Beniers as a quality NHL prospect?
Like I said, like right now, I've flip-flopped between Beniers and Clark as my personal number one. I think I've settled on Matty Beniers as my number one prospect in this draft. I like a lot of what he brings to the game. The potential center group of Cousins and Beniers as your top two guys is pretty appealing. The thing with Beniers is his ranking is a little bit all over the place. It depends on the way you look at him. Like, he was really good at Michigan. Michigan has a trio of players that are probably going top 10 this year. Like, I can see an argument for the other Kent Johnson to be going that high. They had a lot of good, young, exciting players. I got to say this, if I'm a Seattle Kraken fan, I'm really excited because there's a chance that Matty Beniers is probably going to be the pick at number 2. And he's not a franchise center, so don't think that you have that. But he is a legitimate number 2C. Like, he brings a lot of good aspects to this game. Unfortunately, today he broke his ankle, or not broke his, I can't say that, because he left the game with an ankle injury today for the Team USA, and it looked pretty bad. So unfortunately for hockey fans, he won't be playing the rest of the World Championships unless he's like a superhero. He's just a fun, exciting player. Like, he scores goals, he sets up plays, he has a nice 200-foot game. He's that. In a lot of ways, he's similar to Dylan Cousins. I think Dylan Cousins is a bit more explosive speed-wise, but that's my appeal there, is having you're about to blow up your current forward group in Buffalo. Having Beniers and Cousins as the foundation would be really nice. The one caveat here is Buffalo really likes the U.S. national development team. They do draft a lot of players from there. So if that Seth Appert was also a part of that program. I don't remember how long ago. I think he got hired straight from there, actually, to be Rochester's head coach. So there are those connections there. So that's where I'm saying it's probably 90-10. Still more than likely going to be Power, but the only other choice for Buffalo at 1 is Beniers. Those are the two that they're going to settle on. I think they're ultimately going to settle on Power. But there is a lot of connections to Beniers, and given the fact that he brings a lot of what Buffalo is going to need at center, again, assuming Jack Eichel is gone, because I think it's safe to assume that now at this point. Starting over with a center group of Cousins and Beniers, and then, middle stat looked pretty good. It will at least be exciting. Going forward, the new lottery rules don't come into effect till next year, so Buffalo actually, technically, if they're still bad, can win the 2022 and 2023 lotteries. That would be something. It just... Again, I don't want to rave about Beniers as much as I want to, because I know they're picking Power, so I'm not going to just psych myself up talking about Beniers when I know it's more than likely he's not going to be on this team. Like I said, I can't rave about him too much because then I'm just going to start to get angry. But he is a good choice, and a lot of people have him ranked number 1. Central Scouting has him as the 6th ranked skater in North America, which I think is really crazy. But that's the thing with this draft. Like, we talked about it. There is no true blue superstar prospect. Beniers would make a nice pick at number 1. I can't tell you right now if he's ultimately going to be better than Power. I think he's going to be, but who knows? Buffalo fans need to also get used to the Buffalo fans just need to get used to the fact that they're probably taking Owen Power. Matty Beniers is probably going to be on the Seattle Kraken. And for those saying that we need forward prospects, I agree. You just don't draft for need in the NHL. If there's a tie, sure. But if they have Owen Power as the number 1 guy, that is who they should take. They can get those forward prospects in with number 30. Well, I guess it would be 33 now because Seattle's in the draft. Yeah, so it would be 33, the first pick in the second round. They have Jack Eichel. They're going to trade Jack Eichel for forwards. They're not going to get defensemen. So there are other ways to get those forward prospects that we do need. So basically what I'm saying is drafting Owen Power is not the end of the world. I am not prepared to deal with Sabres Twitter for the next month because it's already started. They're ragging on Owen Power for the wrong reasons. I get it. I want Matt Beniers as well. But Owen Power is still a good prospect, and he is going to be an impact player for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, and you basically, like you mentioned there, you basically have an end of the first round. You basically have a second first-round pick, essentially, because it's the first pick of the second round. So how many times have we seen forwards drop out of the first round and taken with those first, 5 or 10 picks in the second round, and they end up
Paterka.
Exactly. They end up becoming solid players. So even if you don't take a forward with that first pick, you basically have an end of the second first round pick there with an opportunity to take one of those guys that's left over that was a first round talent that kind of slipped out. So there's always opportunity there as well. And if Beniers does drop to Seattle, it's a great starting chip for them as they start their franchise and the expansion draft. So he will be probably a top 2 pick. If not Buffalo, the Seattle Kraken will get themselves a nice player there. Let's talk about the other 2 guys in the poll that aren't getting kind of the most attention here. Let's start off with William Eklund. Austin, obviously, he's playing over in Sweden, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the team that he's playing for, but 23 points in 40 games. He's 18 years old, 2002 birth date, 154 pounds, 5'6". What are we thinking of William Eklund as a prospect? Do you see him, maybe if the Sabres traded down for some reason, would he be a guy that they would look at 3, 4, 5 if a team wanted to jump up there and take Power, Beniers? What are we thinking of William Eklund's chances of being a Sabre?
So I will say one thing. Buffalo fans are extremely lucky that they did not get the 3rd overall pick because I would have tweeted Mason McTavish's face every day until the draft. But William Eklund, he is a hell of a prospect. He won the Swedish Elite League Rookie of the Year playing for Deer Gardens this year. He outproduced Lucas Raymond's draft year production. I am very surprised William Eklund is not getting more love. I think the Athletics mock draft had him 6th, which I think is pretty low for him, actually. I think Eklund is a bona fide top 4. I know at the Charging Buffalo, our first consolidated rankings, we had him as our number 1 prospect because he is that good. He won't, because most players spend another year in Sweden before coming over to North America, but I think he could slot in on the 3rd line next year for whoever drafts him and probably put up decent numbers, especially getting some power play time. He brings a lot to the game. I mean, he played with top 10 pick last year, Alexander Holtz, New Jersey pick. That obviously helps a lot, but he's a fun player. He should be getting more love for the top over. Maybe not the top overall pick, but he should be getting more top 3 love. When you score 23 points in the Swedish Elite League in a men's league in your draft year, that's no small feat. I think Elias Lindholm had an extremely good draft year in the Swedish Elite League, and he's turned into a pretty solid player. So if you're getting potentially an Elias Lindholm, you can't complain about that, especially in a draft this year, like we said, where it's actually pretty wide open at the top. I know I'm talking about uncertainty that Owen Power is going to be the pick because that's just what's going to happen. But realistically, there's 4 or 5 guys that have that potential to take the number 1 overall pick. Eklund is one of those players. Whoever gets him, I don't think he's going to be a Sabre. I don't think they have even any consideration for him at number 1. But if they did, fans would be extremely happy because he brings that forward depth that they do need. He's a heck of an offensive producer, which they do need. And he's just a fun hockey player. That's what Buffalo needs, especially if they're starting another rebuild. We need to be fun and entertaining. Eklund would bring that.
And playing in the Swedish Elite League as an 18-year-old is no joke. That's a powerful league over there in Europe. That's one of the best leagues outside of the NHL, and for a guy at that age to be playing center in a league like that with a lot of former NHL players that are now playing there that have had a lot of experience, and he's playing against men like you've mentioned. So not an easy feat for William Eklund, and he's doing a pretty darn good job of it. 23 points in 40 games over there. So I think he's a solid prospect as well that should be getting more top 3 to 5 love as well. And let's finish off here with the guy that we might have the most film on as covering the OHL like we do. That is Brent Clark, formerly of the Barrie Colts. Obviously, with the OHL not playing this year, he went over to Slovakia and played overseas. He had 13 points in 26 games. And obviously, his last year played in the OHL with Barrie, 38 points in 57 games for a defenseman, 6 foot, 180. He's a right shot, which we know is always coveted in the NHL with right shot defensemen. What are we thinking of Brent Clark, and from what we've been able to see from him covering the OHL and seeing his rookie year there? What are we thinking of Brent Clark? Do we think that he's going to be the next defenseman taken right after Owen Power, or do you think that the gap between those two isn't as far away as we may have thought?
So personally, like I said, I have Clark as my number 2 prospect. I think I had Power as my number 4 in my final ranking. And right now, I think Power is the more NHL ready player. But Brent Clark's ceiling, to me, is way higher than Owen Power's, and that's only because, again, we've seen Brent Clark. I got to watch Brent Clark in AAA in Don Mills when he put up
113 points. I was about to mention that's crazy for a defenseman.
Yeah, like his ceiling is through the roof, and to be honest, like. He went and played pro in Slovakia, which is good because he at least got to play. I really think if the OHL did play a regular season this year, Clark would be much higher. I think, again, he's a defenseman that's ranked all over the place. I think I've seen him as high as 2, as low as 8. His ranking's all over the place. I think if the OHL did play, we would see him a lot higher. He's got great offensive instincts. He's a good skater. I know skating has kind of been the one criticism on him because there's like a little bit of a technical issue there, but it works just fine for him. He gets up and down the ice, no problem. Whoever gets Brent Clark, you're getting a heck of an offensive defenseman. He is not my favorite prospect in this draft. McTavish is my favorite prospect in this draft, but Clark is good. For your other question, I think he's going to be the 3rd defenseman taken because there's a kid from Sweden named Simone Edvinsson who has the same characteristics as Owen Power. He's a big, strong skating defenseman. Given the year that we just experienced where scouting was hard, views on people like Clark were pretty limited. Really, he looked good in Slovakia, but a lot of people are going to say that's the Slovakian Pro League. It's not like he was playing in the Swedish Elite League or the Liga or even Germany. Like the league he played in was a little bit obscure, but whoever gets him, I think, again, the Athletic had him, their mock draft, I believe, going 8th. No, or that or 7th to San Jose, which would be good for you because you're a Sharks fan. So, like, his ranking is all over the place. I think it's mostly because he was hindered by the lack of an OHL season. Again, I don't think there's any consideration for him at number 1. But he would be the defenseman in this draft that I think has the highest ceiling. And if you told me 4 or 5 years from now he was the best player from this class, I would not be shocked at all.
So you're on the opinion that if the OHL were able to play this season and compete for the 2020 season, 2021 season, that he probably would have, been that guy that would have been talked about as the number 1 overall pick, like we had seen with Rasmus Dahlin and Aaron Ekblad as the former last couple of defensemen that were the clear-cut number 1 overall picks in their draft year.
I think at worst he'd be a top 3 pick if there was an OHL season. I do think a lot of scouts were high on Owen Power for obvious reasons, but I think if Clark got to play in his normal OHL draft year, there would be no doubt about his ceiling. Would he be a guaranteed top 3? I don't know, but in my personal opinion, if there was a regular OHL season, there would be no doubt in my mind that someone would take him in the top 3. I mean, I think as good as Jamie Drysdale is, I think Clark's ceiling is higher. That's how good I think Brent Clark can be. So he was very much hindered by the lack of an OHL season. Nothing he could do about it, unfortunately. Wherever he goes, whoever gets him, you're getting a heck of a player. He's a player that you should definitely be excited about.
Yeah, a guy that definitely didn't get as much attention being on Barrie this year, or last year wasn't the greatest team in the OHL, but everybody was talking about Brent Clark, about what kind of player that this guy could be at the NHL level, and it's unfortunate that we weren't able to cover him this year in the OHL, but maybe next year if he is drafted and the team that drafts him, wants him to go back for another year in the OHL, kind of gets their stuff together. Maybe he does come back and finish off his OHL career, but who knows? He might just go play overseas again, which a lot of prospects did. But with that said, Austin, that's it for basically the 4 players that we talked about in the poll. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up the show today, and just general, first reactions and, first, I guess, kind of emotions of winning the draft lottery and projecting those top 4 guys that could be slotted into the Sabres lineup?
Yeah, so I mean, Kevin Adams kind of said yesterday we don't know if the first overall pick is going to play in Buffalo next year. That's funny GM speak, and I get it, but first overall picks always play in the NHL. They just do. So whoever they do select, he is 99% likely going to be a Buffalo Sabre next year. If they don't, I'll be severely disappointed, because that's just another, the route that they're going, they need young players in. So whoever you're drafting first overall, just play him. Jack Hughes had a really rough first year. Look how good he was this year. You're not going to ruin their development by pulling them out of college a year early and getting them working with NHL trainers and the NHL coaching staff. If you draft Owen Power, you can shelter him with third pair minutes. Basically, Kevin Adams, I do like Kevin Adams. I think he's actually got the best intentions for this team. But when I listen to him talk sometimes, quotes like that, that's just typical GM speak. We can see right through it. I don't need to hear you say you were so excited for Terry and Kim Pegula to win the first overall pick. No one wants to hear you say that. So basically my thoughts are, don't listen to Kevin Adams. It's more than likely than not whoever's picked first overall is going to play next year in Buffalo. And, that's another good young player that we can be excited about watching. So I'm on board with it.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the coach search, which we're still waiting to see what they do in the coaching search, if they go bring back Don Granato or they hire somebody like Rick Tocchet or Bruce Boudreau. But I think bringing in another young player like an Owen Power, Brent Clark, Matt Berniers would be great if Don Granato was the head coach, as we saw what he did with those young players at the end of last year in his limited time taking over as interim head coach. So like you mentioned, just the way of the NHL these days, first overall picks are kind of expected to make the NHL nowadays and kind of, jump into NHL ready status. So I guess that's just the way that we're expecting these prospects as they're becoming bigger and faster, and more NHL ready is the term that they like to use at such a young age coming out of the draft.
Yeah, exactly. Be excited. We're getting a good young player. Even if it's not the player that you want, that doesn't mean it was a failed pick. It's not it's not like passing on Jack Eichel for Dylan Strome. It's taking Owen Power will be fine. Taking Matt Beniers will be great, but just be excited. Unfortunately, we're probably starting another rebuild, and when we start a rebuild, these are the types of players we have to be excited to watch, because hopefully a couple years from now, we're not even in position to be drafted first overall.
Yep. Hopefully it's not another 10-year rebuild like we just went through, but with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here in the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the show. My name is Brent Clark. You can follow me right there down below at Caputs13_AGM, and as well, you can follow my co-host Austin at Austin_Broad, like it says right there, and make sure you're following all of his other endeavors that he is going to be doing coming up with a lot of draft stuff as well. So make sure you're checking him out. And a big thank you to all the great sponsors help put us on, support the network, keeping the show on the air, and to you viewers out there and Sabres fans for tuning in and listening along for this episode. And make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and liking us on YouTube for our new video versions of the podcast. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that. So with that said, this has been the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition on the Armchair GM Sports Network, and we'll see you guys again very soon.